And welcome in to another episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The preseason is here. We have actual hoops occurring on the hardwood. We, of course, will be breaking it all down. We'll also be going over some fun news and notes, including our beloved Nikola Jovic getting a contract extension. So, Lino, I'm excited to get into all this with you. I think the best place to start is this Jovic contract extension. So he signed a 4-year, $62.4 million deal, nets out to a little above $15 million a year. What was your initial reactions, and what do you expect to see from Jokic over these next 4 years?
I was really excited that we locked him in for the next 4 years. I think that the entirety of Heat culture, from the fan base to the front office, are pretty well aligned in that a long term commitment with this player has a lot of potential, even despite some of the health concerns. And obviously, he's been on quite the growth path from joining the Heat way back when. But I think we've all seen the things that we want to see in regards to where his game can go in the future. And I'm excited to see that play out in a Miami Heat uniform. So I thought the contract was fair. I think from a price point, especially considering, where the cap is going to be in the next few years, I think this is going to be considered by many in the next few years as a steal. Like, I think we got him at a pretty good price. It's going to look even better in the coming years. So yeah, it's nice. I think it's a pretty straightforward contract too. I don't think there's really any options or anything in that last year. So it's nice to have that long-term commitment. Just knowing that he's going to be playing basketball for us. And so, yeah, excited to see what happens with his career, and honestly have been pretty happy with what we've seen so far this week.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing to note the Heat. They're always, especially Andy Ellisberg, the general manager. He's always got something planned for the future. So what Miami did with this deal for the cap nerds out there is they simultaneously front loaded it and back loaded it. So it's a 4-year contract, and the highest paid years are the first year and the last year, which means the two middle years, 27, 28, and 28, 29, the Miami Heat will have a little more cap flexibility. So I know we always like to keep an eye out on those kind of things. So this is another move where it does lock down somebody on the roster, but it does seem like they're kind of thinking of maybe that summer of 2027, trying to have some extra flexibility to maybe pursue someone. We won't name names, but could be somebody out there. We'll see. But yeah, I echo all your sentiments. Nico is great. Really, my only issue with Nico in terms of where he is as a prospect and his development, I think everything on the court has been about as good as you could expect. It's really just not being on the court is the only problem. In his 3 years, I think the most games he's played is 46, so it's very low. But like we saw with Tyler last year, I mean, Tyler hadn't been super healthy and then was able to put together a ton of games last year. So hopefully Nico can follow that same route. Seems like he's gotten stronger every year, more physically fit. So hopefully that'll lead to him being on the court more, because as we're going to talk about, I think the coaching staff, the front office, pretty much the entire organization wants to have a better offense this year. And I think Nico, you could argue, is one of the most important players for that. So that kind of transitions us into training camp talk. We've already had 2 preseason games, so we can blend that as well. But Lino, I know, you know, training camp, you could almost make like a bingo card of cliches. He added 15 pounds of muscle. Oh, this is the best shape he's ever been. And, there's different things you could add on. But I would like to hear from you based on what you heard from players, Spo, whoever it might be, reporters just around the team. What do you feel like were points of emphasis for Miami for this specific training camp going into the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that I was reminded, honestly, of how well this organization does from a brand standpoint, down to the philosophy and the message we're going to deliver. Like, you can tell everybody's been coached and everybody has been told what the mission is going forward. One of the main staples of the conversations had during media days and during training camp was that we are going to make the playoffs and avoid the play in. That was something that was echoed by pretty much every player in all their interviews as far as goals for the season. And so, which, given the context of where we are as a team, is a very ambitious goal. But it seems that the team has no plans to really settle for anything. And any conversations we had prior to about them tanking, naturally it's not going to happen. They're trying to make the playoffs, and more so, they're trying to land in those top six seeds so that they can avoid the play-in altogether, which is a lofty goal. But I think goals should be lofty, and I was excited to see that all the players are kind of bought into that idea and feel like they have enough to get the job done there. So that was the main thing. Obviously, offense, tempo seemed to be big pieces of the conversation, but I was generally impressed with just how this organization gets that message out there and how it starts with the leaders and trickles down into the role players as well. And I think that I can get pretty naive with these things. So, take that with a grain of salt. But honestly, I feel pretty good about, you know, their chances if they are going to really try. Like they've got me sold on it. And I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Davion and Bam both said they're expecting a championship. So, you know,
Yeah.
shoot for the moon. But yeah, I would say my biggest takeaway, at least the one I was most interested in from all the training camp interviews and reporting, is the offense, right? I think
hmm
everyone, from anyone that watches the team, reports on the team, is involved in the team, knows the offense needs to change. It has not been good enough for several years now, really since 2020. And I think there are meaningful ways they can improve it while maybe having less talent than they had last year, especially if you're kind of factoring in Tyler's absence for however long that may be. So, a couple points kind of to just give a baseline. Last year, the Heat were 26th in transition frequency. So there are only 30 teams. So that is quite slow. They did not run very often. This includes just off a live rebound, off a steal. They were not playing in transition very much. When they did, they were 10th in points per possession in transition. So this was not a team that ran a lot, but when they did, they were very successful. So, natural conclusion someone could come to, if we can figure out a way to run more, to be in transition more, to play with more pace, it could yield better offense, right? So I think that's the thought process, and that is why it's not set in stone yet, but why so far it seems like Eric Spoelstra is leaning towards playing Nikola Jovic in the starting lineup over Kel'el Ware. And I think the idea with that is there's more shooting coming from Nico, more ball handling, passing. And honestly, specifically for transition, that you could argue that's probably Nico's best place to play or best style to play is when he gets a rebound and pushes. We saw that so much with his national team this offseason.
hmm
He's very good at making decisions. He's big enough to get to the basket if he needs to. So I kind of wanted to transition to that question for you. I know we've talked about, who should start alongside Bam for a long time, but through the lens of offense specifically, how do you think the Nico fit works? What have you seen from it in the preseason games already? What do you make of all that?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, even going back to training camp and media day, how different those two players have been and their approach to this upcoming season, the kind of answers they've been giving in media, but also their play on the floor. And we're going to get into the preseason games, of course. But before we get there, I just thought it was super interesting. Jovic being asked about that kind of battle that's going to be happening for that starting spot between him and Kalel. And it seems that Jovic really, really wants to do everything he can to get that starting position and is going to really fight for that. With Kalel, when he's asked the same questions, his answer, which I think is still a good answer and a very team friendly answer, was like, I want to play whatever position Spo needs from me, like whether that's starting, whether that's coming off the bench. I want to be ready and available to, do my job. And so those are two very different answers in regards to their approach to this season and this off season before the season starts. But it is also, I think, a key highlight to what they are bringing to the table right now in their games. Jovic brings so much on the offensive side from a passing standpoint, but also from an energy, from a pace, standpoint, and just getting out and running in transition. He's one of our best players when it comes to that. So not only in the half court does he bring a lot of skills, but as far as that transition basketball, that's going to be so important for us going forward. He is going to be one of the bigger catalysts for that on every possession, whether the defense or the opposing team makes a shot or misses a shot. He's the kind of guy that can just get things going at a much faster pace than we have before. That does come with a little bit of chaos sometimes, and that has kind of been the big progression and growth piece that we've needed from him, is making smarter decisions within that chaos. But I do think there's a part of Spo that really appreciates, some of the confusion that he brings to the floor every once in a while. Whereas Kalel is definitely a slower player. His biggest critique is his motor and his decision making. And ultimately, he does have some offensive skills in regards to shooting, his post game, and defensively, obviously, he brings a lot of size and athleticism to the floor. But I don't know if he has the capacity to upgrade this offense in the way that we need it, especially in Tyler's absence.
Yeah, that's a great point to end on too. Tyler's absence could inform more of this than we realize. Spo, if you have Norm and Tyler starting in your backcourt, you might feel like, okay, our offense is going to get a boost just from that. But with Tyler being out, the need for more ball handling, I do think that probably made it more likely that Nico would start. Now, for people wondering, I did pull the stats from last year. Not that this is everything, but I wanted to get some kind of context for it. So I looked at the different pairings of these three players, being Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware, and Nikola Jovic. So if we're looking at just offense, just their offensive rating, Bam and Ware were at a 118 offensive rating, very good. Ware and Nico were at a 115 offensive rating, still pretty good. And then Bam and Nico were at a 111 offensive rating, which is not very good. And the net ratings reflect that as well. So Bam and Ware were a +6, Ware and Nico were like basically even. And then Bam and Nico were a big negative. They're like -3.5. So statistically, you look at that and say, okay, well, obviously, they need to start Ware and Bam next to each other. But season over season, it doesn't, the net rating, the offensive rating doesn't necessarily mean it'll carry over. And again, we're hoping this will be Nico in this new look offense that really sounds like it will cater to him. So for any Ware fans out there that might have been like, if you look at the stats, like it looks way better, and also the cool thing is all three of these guys will still get to play together a fair amount, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the other cool byproduct of Nico starting means, like we did last year where Nico was the sub, now Ware will be the sub, Bam will go to the bench, and then we'll still get those Nico Ware minutes I would expect, which were a lot of fun last year.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell those guys had really good synergy,
Yeah, I think
especially
even
setting up
beyond
offense.
Yeah, I think even beyond this conversation of having them compete for this starting spot, I think the fan base and media maybe not seeing the forest for the trees, in the sense that I think we have a very positive situation, and all three of these players have some really strong connectivity in some very unique ways. I think the three of them in their different matchups and different pairings bring a lot of different wrinkles to our offense and our defense. And so seeing Spo, utilize that in different ways, and the best versions of Spo, I think we'll probably see a lot of different versions of where they go in the lineup depending on the opponents. And it's nice to have those options more than anything. So glad to have them both. I'm not too concerned with who starts. I think whatever ends up being the best product is going to be on the floor. But ultimately, I think they're going to get pretty equitable minutes between Jovic and Ware.
Yeah, I also, from Kalel's development standpoint, I kind of love this because the things that would force Spo to not play Nico as much is if Nico isn't rebounding like he should and isn't defending like he should. So in theory, that kind of puts Kalel in the position to where you have to rebound and defend to get these minutes back. And I love
Mm-hmm.
for him as a young player, for it doesn't matter if you go out and get 20 off the bench. Like we all know Spo is not really going to be impressed by that. It's like if you want to steal these minutes, you're going to have to do it through toughness, hustle, effort plays. And so I kind of love that. Again, as a fan, we're kind of all winning because all the guys seem to
Mm-hmm.
be cool with it. Nobody's like pouting, they're all just competing for these spots, but saying all the right things to want to help the team. And so I think it honestly could lead to the best development for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
hopefully that'll
agree.
be the case. Now we can transition to the preseason again. Very exciting. We have actual basketball. So we're recording this on October 7th. So we've had two games so far, the game versus the Orlando Magic and then the game versus the Milwaukee Bucks. There are different trends you could kind of take away from. Obviously, it's two games. The main guys aren't playing very much. And I do want to say at the top, basically no point guards are available. So it's hard to know exactly what this team will really look like. A list of the guys that have been out so far: Tyler Hero, Davion Mitchell, Pelle Larson, Kasparis Jakubonis, Terry Rozier, and then Simone Fontecchio played the first game but missed the second game. So that's a lot of ball handling that's not out there. So far, Jaime Jaquez has basically been starting as point guard, which I find a little interesting. We can talk about that.
Pretty
But
fun.
yeah, it's pretty fun. And honestly, that's my main takeaway. The Heat have lost both games and turned it over a fair amount. And there are issues, but I felt like fun is one of my main takeaways from how this has looked so far. What have you seen from the actual on court action?
Yeah, I think it's funny because, again, I want to circle back to how good this organization is at getting the message to the players of what they want. You can see it in these first two games. Everybody got the missive in their email that says, shoot the freaking rock. We have no offense if you guys cannot figure out a way to generate offense. And so you see guys who would never be shooting at the clip that they're shooting at doing it quite aggressively right now. Bam being the main perpetrator and maybe the biggest concern from that standpoint. But even guys like Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's just like putting up 7 shots, looking really confident out there, whether they're going in or not, I'll leave that for another conversation. But everybody has the responsibility to try to generate some kind of offense, and you can tell because we've seen teams that have been told, hey, we are just going, or Miami Heat teams rather, that have been told, hey, we're just going to try to pass our way into a good shot. And we've seen teams, led by Josh Richardson and Wayne Ellington and Justice Winslow just trying to overpass their way into a good look and just running out of time on the shot clock. Whereas we got at least 3 guys on the floor at all time who are like, hey, if none of y'all are looking to shoot, I will go find my bucket right now. And so that is, I think, a positive thing, especially in these first 14 games that we may or may not have Tyler Hero in, is that there are guys who are looking to take on that challenge. And I think they are generating some interesting looks. Bam, we can have that conversation. But I was really intrigued by Jaime Jaquez and what he's brought to these 2 games. One, from a dribble package standpoint, I think he's got a really tight and clean handle right now, and his 3-point shot looks really, really clean. Like the other day, I think he went 1 for 2, and then I think yesterday he just made the one that he shot, but they looked really nice. One of them was just in rhythm off the dribble, like looked just pure. And I was like, if he has really developed to be a confident shooter, rather, he doesn't even necessarily need to be efficient, but if he's going to be confident out there and take advantage of the corner threes he was given all season last year, that could really generate a lot for him. And if he's going to handle the ball with such confidence, then we may not have a choice but to start him or have him as a backup point guard. So he's really going to carve a way for himself if he keeps up this kind of play. Those are kind of the first things that came to mind as I was watching the games. But what were you seeing out there?
So of course, my first thing I'm looking for is how fast are these guys playing? And to the eye test, I was like, oh, they're zooming. And you made a great point. This Heat team for a decade now and plus has been about ball movement, almost like the Spurs beautiful game type identity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where it's multiple actions, multiple dribble handoffs, like just waiting for that one crease to open up to get a good look at the basket. And I hope what this reorientation of the offense might lead to is guys being a little more aggressive taking good looks. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the Spurs whole thing was like pass up a good shot to get a great shot. This Heat team, that great shot might not be coming. And so it's like if you got a good shot, let's just take it. And you saw that there were several instances where one, almost everyone is being allowed to just take the ball and push it up the court, which I love.
Yeah.
And you're seeing there's been multiple occasions, Wiggins and Powell are the two that stand out to me, where somebody gets a rebound, brings it up the court, and one of those guys is on the wing, and the defense just kind of is still getting back. They're kind of making sure they're protecting the rim because it's semi-transition, so they're not on a shooter as much as they would be. And I mean, Wiggins is attempting the 3 with like 20 on the shot clock.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, cause
this is exactly what we need.
and they're making them right now, which makes it look better. But still, it's like this. That's a great look. An open Wiggins three, as long as these guys are comfortable playing fast and doesn't feel rushed. That's about as good as a look as this offense can generate. So I think that's been awesome. Statistically, to give people context, so pace is a stat that's measured in the NBA, like on NBA.com, basketball reference. NBA.com's version essentially is possessions per 48 minutes. So how many possessions would you average in a normal NBA game? For context, last year Memphis was number one in pace at 103, just a little close to 104, but around 103 was number one last year in the league in pace. Dead last was Orlando at 96, right? So we have a range of 103 to 96. Last season, the Heat were 27th and 97. So again, very bottom of pace. So right now, through two preseason games, the Heat are fourth in pace at 108. Okay. So they are faster than the fastest team in the regular season last season. So that's very exciting. That's what we want to see. One word of caution, I will say, in last year's preseason, the Heat were ninth in pace at 104. So
Mm,
this is something that happens in preseason, and of course, our main guys aren't playing. They're playing a very small amount. The ones that are even healthy are playing a small amount of these games. So a lot of these pace numbers are coming from guys that won't even be on this roster. So it doesn't give us a clear picture, but they're playing very fast right now. They're
mhm.
playing pretty much as fast as any other team in this preseason. Will it stick? Will it last? That's to be determined, but we're at least at a good starting point where these guys are zooming up and down the court. And I feel like so far making pretty good decisions. The Milwaukee Bucks game, there were a lot of turnovers, and I think they'll have to adjust to this, but I think it's looked pretty good so far to be such a drastic change for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just shows in the fact that, the good thing is that they're doing it on makes and misses. So, like, obviously, people love to get in transition on opponent misses. But one thing I saw is that, Milwaukee or Orlando would make a shot and they would still push the ball up. Like, they wouldn't wait for the defense to get settled. And I really think that allowed for the offense to do a lot of things that they usually don't do in regards to putting up early shots. And you mentioned Andrew Wiggins. I thought he looked really good out there. I'm super excited. The one of the impressions I got as well was, when I started that first game, I was like, man, I forget how much I love Andrew Wiggins and how happy I am to see him in a Miami Heat jersey. It's so awesome. And now that he's got a full, off season here, I think he's moved his family to Miami. I think, all of the things that are important for him to have a stable season are in place. And he seems to be flourishing on the court already. He looks confident out there. Defensively, he looks, resound. And yeah, offensively, the shot looks pure from three, which is nice.
He's caught some awesome lobs. He's had some
Mhm.
some big dunks. I mean, this
Athletic freak.
yeah, getting this kind of guy in transition as much as possible is such a weapon for the Heat. It'll help him get to the free throw line, but also just get easy buckets. One of my favorite semi-transition plays from the Bucks game was Bam gets a rebound, and again, it's such a asset to have a center that can do this, but immediately pushes it up the court. And I believe it was I'm blanking on the name. It's the shooter for Milwaukee. AJ Green, maybe. Anyway,
Mhm.
Wiggins has a smaller guy on him. So Wiggins posts up. The guy is, trying to push Wiggins off his spot. Wiggins spins off of the small guy. Bam lobs it over. Wiggins catches it and dunks it. This all took place with 19 on the shot clock. That's
Sick.
like unfathomable to me. Like watching this team last year, it would have taken us half an hour to get a look like
Get that
that.
set up. And Zach Lowe mentioned this on his last show too. Is that, like, that's the message he's hearing from the Heat camp, is that there's going to be a bit of a full evolution of what our offense is going to look like. He described it as a renaissance of our offense, which I will have to see it before I believe it. But this showed at least some proof of concept that things are going to be somewhat different if they are going to play this style with their starters. You're right that, a lot of this game, especially the numbers, are mucked up by, 10-day guys G League guys that get the bulk of the minutes throughout this game. But in the minutes that we saw, the players that are definitely going to be involved in the main roster next year, it was very refreshing to see how fast everybody was moving. And to his credit, Nikola Jovic has a lot to do with that. He's played really well in these games from my perspective. He didn't necessarily shoot the ball super well. Not even go so far as to say some of his shots were ill advised and kind of early shot clock just heaves that I don't think Spo loved, but I think he does so much else on the floor that was really positive. I think he's been leading this team in assists, and is just a force on the floor right now, from an energy standpoint, from an involvement standpoint, and on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's a fun thing to think about. If he gets enough minutes, I could see him leading this team in assists for the season, which would be pretty cool. And I wanted to, before we start getting into how specific players have looked, which is definitely interesting, I want to talk to you about Spo specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think, I guess, Spo sees as potentially dangerous with this new style of play? And as a fan that wants us to play like this, what are your things you might be fearful of Spo seeing that makes him want to revert back to the old ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main danger we should point at is the fact that we lost both of these games. And there's a lot going on in regards to who's involved in the game, but that pace was not a solution to winning more basketball. We think that it can translate to more winning later on, but even now we can see it's not enough to generate the amount of offense that you need and the amount of shot making that you need to get the job done. And on the defensive end, it's like also trying to maintain a sound defense while running and gunning for 48 minutes. It is challenging to keep up that kind of pace. And I mean, everybody in the NBA are world class athletes, but it does make it difficult to defend when you're running all the time, especially if you end up playing another team that picks up the pace a lot. And it's like, oh, if you want to run, we'll get out and run too, and we'll just see who's going to run out of steam first. And so that's one of the things I do think Spo likes to have a bit of a better handle on the momentum of a game. And so this is going to be something that I think challenges his mindset in that kind of way. But ultimately, I can tell that he wants to try something different. And I think he's given these guys the license to play very free, which could lead to some really positive things. I think that is the main thing that I see across a lot of different sports is when coaches really give the players the freedom to be themselves out there and see what that generates, because we've got a lot of talent in certain ways that honestly like to play pretty unorthodox when it comes to players like Jovic. Bam himself is a very unorthodox player. Wiggins himself. These guys all play these different things and bring these different things to the table that a very systemic offense may not bring the best out of all of them. Like a lot of them have had to kind of fit into the system. And I think a fast paced, free flowing offense requires less of that and more of letting people have a personality on the floor. And that's going to be a big challenge for Spo, but I hope he leans into that because I think that is really the only way that we're going to maximize the potential of some of these younger players.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of great points there. And I think that's why this year, well, as developmentally speaking, is one of the more interesting Spo years we've had in a while because
Mm-hmm.
he's already probably whatever you want to say, top 10 coach ever. And I think last year we talked on the pod, we felt like by Spo standards, it was a down year. And I think he's responding to that. I don't know if he sees it
Mm-hmm.
that way, but clearly him and the organization are trying to make changes. And I think from Spo's perspective and what could determine if this play style sticks or not is how much he can accept what you give up playing this style, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's we're not a team that has enough talent to continue all the good things we played with last year and then add all these good, there's going to be a give and take. And so defense and rebounding are the two that you would look out for the most, right? Specifically transition defense, right? Because if your
Yeah.
whole team's pushing the ball one way, you take a quick three and miss, that your whole team needs to run back, right? And Miami Heat always say best conditioned team, and they say all the other things too, but best conditioned team, if that's the case, you should be built for this kind of game. Rebounding is another issue. It sounds like they're going to be playing smaller, right? So we're not going to get the double big. Defensive rebounding with Bam and Nico on the court last year was good. It was like 83rd percentile, which is great. But Nico, and Spo said this in the post-game press conference after the Milwaukee game, Nico needs to be a better rebounder. And that's, I think Spo said he's literally gotten better in every aspect of the game except rebounding, is what he said in the post-game press conference. So, and Nico had, I think, close to double-digit rebounds last night. So that's something he can do. But again, if these guys are so used to sprinting up the court, then they're going to need to get that board before they start sprinting up the court, or they'll
Hmm.
start getting beat up on the offensive glass. So yeah, that's for me from the Spo perspective. Rick Carlisle and these other coaches that have created these, Pacers or Pacer clone type teams, they're fine with Benedict Mathurin taking that pull up three, with 22 on the shot clock, right? But
Hmm.
we've seen Spo. I always flash back to that video. It's like a courtside fan took the video. It was like 2 years at a Pelicans game. Tyler took a pull up. I think it was a mid range, so it's a little different, but a pull up shot very early in the shot clock. And Spo, like, it's hard for me to describe what his body did. It was like it was kind of how the teacher in the Fairly Odd Parents would move, where like his body, all his limbs were going in different directions. But he was livid, and that is kind of what you're asking for with this new style. I think it's ultimately what this team needs to do. I think this is a team that's really well built for it because they don't have a ball dominant guy, and that's a good and a bad thing, right? There's no longer Jimmy Butler to where it's like, well, if the possession's bad, we'll just dump it to Jimmy in the post and he'll get a good look out of it. That's not there anymore. And also it's a talented it's a group where the talent is close to flat across most of the positions, right? Like obviously Tyler and Bam are on the high end of it, but it's not like, okay, we have these three all-stars, we have to get the ball all the time, right? So it's
Hmm.
like if it's a Davion night, it's a Davion night. Cool. If Fontecchio is hitting six threes, cool, it's a Fontecchio night. But allowing equal opportunities and maybe allowing Spo to go deeper in the bench than he normally
Yeah,
does to keep these guys
that
fresh.
that's going to be important, I think. Yeah, all of that is really good points, are really good points. And yeah, I think these guys just got to let it fly. And I think Spo needs to let them let it fly without necessarily these deep repercussions of like, if you're taking a contested or, you're double teamed and you're trying to shoot over it or you've been holding the ball. That's the thing is I just don't want people to hold the ball, like either move the ball or shoot the ball. Like that's got to be
Yes.
it. Like I don't
Mhm.
want someone dribbling the air out of the ball. And so long as they're not doing that, if you're open, if your guy's giving you a lot of room to shoot and you're in rhythm, like let it fly. And that's what I'm hoping to see. And that's kind of what we've seen in these first two preseason games.
Yeah, and that's this team should be very low in isolation rate. Like they should
Hmm.
not be trying to attack guys one on one. Like that's not the skill base of this team, right? Like they need to be pushing in transition. And Spo also mentioned that post game press conference regarding Nico. He was saying how he liked the quick trigger threes; they were okay, but he did not love the step back three that he made. By the way, I think in the Magic game. But even that is like telling. It's like, okay, so as long as like someone else brought it up and kicked it ahead, it sounds like Spo's cool with that guy taking an open three. But it's like
Hmm.
if somebody just brings it up and just launches it, that might not be something he's cool with. So this will all be stuff obviously we'll monitor very closely. But I sounding like it's going to be a very fascinating start to the season, and it sounds like we're finally getting some change. Which
Hmm.
we got some change last year against our will, and it was unpleasant, but it sounds
Yeah.
like maybe some good changes on the way. So it's exciting overall. Specific players, either aspects of their game or just overall that have kind of stood out to you in these preseason games.
Well, the two players I think we should start with are probably Norm and Bam.
Yeah.
Obviously our best players on the floor in regards to who we put out there for the preseason. We can start with Norm since he's a new guy. Really exciting stuff from him. He's legitimately so good and very efficient when it comes to shooting that rock. So was really excited to see that in fruition and in a Heat jersey. But did you have any particular takeaways from Norm's introduction to the Miami Heat so far?
Well, watching him, he gave me some hope that they will continue to play faster because I feel like this is a guy that will be fun to play fast with. Like you
Mhm.
could see Nico and different guys bringing it up the court. We're like, "Ooh, can I pitch this to Norm?" And we just like get a three up really quickly. Like Nico
Yeah.
had several where he just drove it, not even to try and get to the basket, but just to create a little pocket. He flipped it back to Norm, who hit a three. And in the Bucks game, he really got heated. I think he had 18
Mhm.
points in like 16 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he
I
was
he
letting it fly. He had
yeah,
3 threes.
yeah, and he is someone who his style, his skills, his talent really lends itself to playing quickly, and then the drives. We just this team does not get to the basket or hasn't historically very often outside of Jimmy Butler. And these drives by Norm, and he hasn't even like made all of them. It's not like he looks like 2012 LeBron, but him, you can just tell he's so comfortable getting downhill, and that
Mhm.
that has been great to see. It's something this team really needs. And then the last note, I've been like pleasantly pleased. I don't know. I don't want to say surprised because I expected it, but I think his passing has looked fine. Like I know
Mhm.
there was one play where I thought he missed Bam on a lob, and I think he still scored off of it. But I feel like he's kicking out to shooters. Like he's not Trey Young or something, but this is not like some mindless chucker. Like
Yeah.
he's making smart basketball plays.
Yeah, he plays winning basketball, and I think that's really apparent just to the eye test, let alone the stats. And so that was really endearing to see, made me very excited. But what did not make me so excited was Bam Adebayo's vision for what he wants to do offensively going into this season. If these two games are an indicator of like where Bam's mindset is going into this season, I hate to say it, and I think he's still going to be amazing for us as he always is. But it could likely be the worst case scenario in regards to what Bam is going to do next season. He was letting it loose and not in a good way, very derogatory way. And the challenge is there, the pressure is there. He knows if anybody's going to do it, he's got to do it as well. Um, but it did not look great, especially in that first game. But thoughts on Bam from an
Yeah,
offensive standpoint? Defensively, he's freaking Bam Adebayo, like
right, no
amazing.
problems there. Yeah, this is a conversation similar to ones we've had before, but it's always what I think of when I see people say Bam needs to be more aggressive. And I'm like, picture that. What are you picturing? Are you just picturing him making more shots? Because that's not fair. Just say make more shots. That's not realistic. Because if you ask a player to be more aggressive, the most likely outcome is they will just take more shots of the shots they normally take, and they'll probably be worse quality because they're already taking all the good quality shots available to them. And I think in ways that's what we're seeing with Bam right now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Miles Turner, that matchup is just always going to be
That's
one
rough.
that, yeah, I know Bam's gotten the better of him in the past. I'm not saying he hasn't, but Miles Turner's a good defender and he just gets up for that Bam matchup. So, anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, so to me, I would say pressing or forcing is kind of how it looks right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you wanted to frame it more positively, you could say exploring the studio space, figuring out in this up tempo offense, I'm not going to take pull up threes. So what am I taking? I don't think he's attempted a three in the preseason so far, which is slightly
No.
concerning. But we saw there's one possession. This is a made shot where he was on the left wing. I forget who brought it up, but they pitched it to him and he just took maybe one or two dribbles, got to the foul line, bumped Miles Turner, had help coming in from the weak side, so maybe should have passed it, and then just got into like a pull up 15-footer and made it, which is cool, but I don't know if that's like super effective offense. But so it seems like he's kind of figuring out in this new fast paced offense, how often is he just going to try and do full drives to the basket? How often is he going to get into pull ups? And then, yeah, I think some of the drives, I love Bam, so I'm not trying to. It's just he's forcing it. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go as far to say he's just driving for fouls, but it doesn't seem like it's low on the list of his intentions when he's going to the basket. He
Mm-hmm.
does, like a lot of players do, kind of the exaggerated arm sweep through, which has led to him getting stripped a lot throughout his career and in these two preseason games. He had 5 turnovers in the Bucks game and limited minutes. So though those are concerns to me. Bam is
Yeah.
such a helpful, effective player, but I don't know if it's best for everyone's interest for him just to kind of be attacking good defenders one on one.
Yeah, I think the big difference between even the conversation we were having earlier, as far as being excited for everybody letting it loose and just playing really free within the offense, is everybody else, for the most part, are letting it loose from the 3 point line or going ham at the rim or trying to get into some post action. Whereas Bam, his letting it loose is like an attempt to drive to the basket that results in a mid range shot or a turnover, and that is kind of the opposite of what feels good about a free flowing offense and a really fast paced offense. And so I will say that I do think the free throw generation has been a bit more clinical than we may be giving it credit for. Like, I do think it's something that obviously he learned a lot from Jimmy and maybe even has worked a lot with Asia Wilson. Like, I think that this is a part of what he's doing. Like, I do think it's a priority for him to try to get to the free throw line, and it's very intentional, and that works well. But to a certain degree, the shots still need to look better, and some of them need to go in. He went 0 for 5 against Orlando, so that's 5 shots and 5 of those attempts that didn't go in, and then he had 8 free throws. And so, that's so many attempts that I think I like the volume that just needs to look a little different and maybe a little less spastic. But, when he's getting to the free throw line, if he can generate that, then I won't be so mad at it. But if that's all you're generating, it's going to be tough. So, yeah, I think part of it would be nice if it was just some open threes he was taking. It's just some clean diet corner threes. But, we have a lot of guys shooting threes right now. So there might not even just be that room, especially if he's playing alongside Jovic for the most part. There might not be that room on the 3 point line for him to take advantage of. So we'll see. I'm not crazy concerned. That's just like the complete opposite of what I hope to see when we
Yeah.
got into these games
I
this
would
week.
I need someone on the Heat video staff to put together a compilation of this specific player playing in transition, but somehow like disguise who it is, put some kind of filter on the video and just be like, bam, play like this mystery player. Don't worry about who it is. And it's actually Miles Turner playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton last year. Because Turner is a shooter and he would take some transition threes and stuff, but what he was so good at doing was sealing smaller players. Right. He
Mm-hmm.
would sprint down the court, he'd sprint past the center that was on him, and he'd trap, for us, it would be Hero or somebody small underneath the basket. And I mean, he would be right at the front of the basket with, 21 on the shot clock. Halliburton feeds it in, and then it's a layup or a foul. That I would love to see more of. So if Bam could maybe change his transition game to play more like a big. I know he has so many great perimeter skills, but if his mindset could really be, I'm sprinting to the basket. I know everyone else is sprinting to the 3 point line. I'll have space. I'm going to trap a small guy underneath there, and Nico, Davion, Tyler, whoever it is going to feed me and I'm going to score. So that would be my ideals way for Bam to function. And he did some of that. I'm not saying he didn't do any of it, but I would much more like for him to focus on that rather than running to the wing and then trying to attack from there, because that just has never
Mm-hmm.
seemed to be something that's supernatural for him.
Yeah, so that was something. Were there any other young guys, or we did get the return of Drew Smith? That was
Yeah.
crazy.
Shout out to Drew. What are you doing?
Yeah, what are
There's
you doing
no
here,
way that a kid can
Ariana? What are
steal.
you doing here?
We talked about when they signed Drew after trading Haywood. I was like, yeah, and he'll be back eventually. It's like, oh no, he's actually going to play in every preseason game. He tore his Achilles like 10 months ago. It's not, I mean, it's okay, I
It's like, under
guess.
no circumstances is Jason Tatum allowed to come back before I do. He saw
Yeah.
that commercial and he's like, oh, heck no. I
Right.
am coming back right now. And, he looks solid out there. I was, nothing too crazy, but he seems very well composed. He seems healthy. And I like the way that he manages the offense when he has the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting that he isn't starting because I feel like he's the closest facsimile to Davion, who I assume is the other starter. So it's
Mhm.
interesting they're giving Jaime that look. Jaime, you hit on it earlier, but I think he's shooting his three confidently. I think it looks pretty good. It seems like he's worked on it. It looks a little different, but I think it looks better. I think there's less of a hitch to it.
Hmm.
And then we talked about Nico a good bit. What have you seen from Ware so far? Because there's, as always, there's lots of dialogue,
Yeah,
discourse, if you
and
will.
the dialogue I think is pretty accurate in regards to there's these flashes of this really incredible player that if we could just get that player for 30 minutes a game, he could have a very special career. There's these comparisons, and even we've kind of talked about like some of the stuff that Spo says is like the exact same thing he was saying to Hassan Whiteside. And I want to give Ware a little bit more credit and a little bit more of a challenge in the sense that the way Spo talked about Whiteside and the player that Whiteside was when he was playing with us, he didn't have half the talent or potential that Khalil Ware has. Like Hassan Whiteside was very large and could block very well and could crash the boards well, but there weren't really any other notable skills. Khalil Ware has some level of skill at every single facet of basketball, whether it be dribbling, defending, shooting, rebounding, playing defense at the rim, playing defense at the three. Like
I love that
he,
you listed everything but passing because that's
yeah,
so
butt
true.
passing. Yeah, I was like butt passing. I almost said it was like, well, no, he's not that much of a passer, but he has like this skill set and this athleticism, and he's not slow. Like he's slow when he's out there, but he's not a slow athlete. Like he can move. We've seen it. It's literally just motor and consistency, and like he's that close to being a really special player, and all of that feels like it's just a mindset thing, and it's kind of like I think it's hard to have patience for someone who has that kind of issue. And so I think if we go into another season of him not really doing it, like Jovic is, we had a lot of patience with Jovic because he was just kind of a silly guy. It's like, he's working hard out there. He's just not working hard in the right ways. This is someone who's like not working hard or working hard in the right ways. It's like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
tough.
think I think what you hit on there is important, an important distinction between Kalel and Hassan, because that comp does come up a lot. And it seems that Kalel responds well to the challenges from the coaching staff. Like
Hmm.
there were times where
He
Hassan would
welcomes it.
do Hassan would do a post game interview like at his locker, and I'd be like, get this dude off my team. Like, just seem very like me first. Kalel seems very team first. He says the right
Hmm.
things in the media, whether he feels them or not. That's a big positive just for the entire organization not to have to deal
Yeah.
with, covering for all PR nightmares essentially. But yeah, Kalel Spo was very candid after the Milwaukee game because a reporter asked him, he or a journalist was like, Khalil had 18 and 10 tonight. What did you like from him? And Spo, the first sentence I believe was, well, there were 3 minutes where he actually impacted winning. And I was like, oh. And he said, and basically his whole, response was, I need to figure out how to get those 3 minutes to impact the whole game. And Spo was
Hmm.
like, he had 18 and 10 and he was minus 21. He's like, I want
Yeah.
them to be plus 21. So, and Spo said at the end, and I love this, he said, that's why I love coaching him. And I
Hmm.
think that seems to be, I hope, the distinction here between, you know, Michael Beasley, Hassan Whiteside, these guys that have had talent and not worked out in the Heat organization, is it feels like Spo knows the fully realized version of Kalel is accessible to him, and it'll just take time to get there. And I
Yeah.
hope that to be the case because he's very talented. He's one of those guys where I'm sure everyone saw he had this steal like at half court, ran the length of the court, got fouled, threw up this wild circus shot and made it like over the backboard. And it's like, gosh, like not that circus shots necessarily relate to talent, but a big being out on the perimeter, getting a steal, running the court, converting the basket, like those are such valuable, unique skills that if they can be honed into winning would be amazing. And we'll just see if it's possible. I mean, he's one of the more. I mean, you could argue the most interesting player on the roster in
Hmm.
terms of how this organization is really going to go. Like, if they turn him into like an okay starter, that's fine. But he might be the only one on the roster, other than guys that have already been all stars, that has all star potential, really.
Yeah.
And that's like a 90th percentile outcome. Like that would be
Yeah.
really high. But yeah, how do you feel? this is a funny question, but just like emotionally, I guess, like watching Kalel not show what looks to us to be max effort, like, and then turn it on in other places. Do you feel like it's a maturity thing for him? Do you feel like he's just being like taught how to play hard? What do you make of it?
I truly think that it's a processing situation. I don't think it's that he's intentionally not working hard or just trying to mail it in. I think sometimes he can get lost in the process and he doesn't realize he's not doing anything. Like, sometimes you're just trying to think about what's happening, what's about to happen next, where's my guy, where should I be, all these things. And through that thought process, he's a stick in the mud. Like he's just
Mm,
standing there. And
yeah,
everybody's like, bro hasn't moved in 9 minutes. And he's
right.
just like standing there. But I don't think, because I think he's a hard worker. I think the things he says in the interviews and in the media, and even the way that the coaching staff talks with him, they don't even necessarily talk about him not having enough effort or not trying hard enough. I think they also, because I feel like that's an easy thing to call out, is like, Chloe Ware wasn't really working hard enough. They don't really call those kind of things out that way. So I don't think they really see it that way either. I do think it's mostly about processing the game in real time and making the right decisions and then acting on them. Like I think his reaction time is a bit more slow, not necessarily his effort. Like there's a guy, he's got somebody in the post, one of our guards is guarding somebody on the wing and they get beat and they're behind their player now, and I think he's still trying to think about, has somebody rotated to my guy, do I need to just protect the rim right now, do I need to get ready for the rebound? And by the time that's done, the shot's been up and he's just standing there. And so I think a lot of people will look at something like that and say, oh, he's just not even trying out there. But if you kind of read and look at him a little bit closer, you can kind of see him looking around, like doing things in his head, but not necessarily translating to on the court. And so I think it's a processing thing. Emotionally, I don't feel too frustrated by it. This is a second year player. Like he is, gosh, 19, 20. Like he's got a lot of career left. And there's a lot to learn about playing in the NBA, especially from his position, especially in this organization. And so I have a lot of patience with him. I think that the flashes are really exciting as well. So that helps. Like when he's playing well, when he's really active, and when he does turn that motor on for those split moments, like it's pretty scary. It's like, how does anybody beat this guy for a rebound? How is he not, getting 17 alley oops a game? It's because he can't get into the position to do it well enough just yet. But the effort, I think, is not necessarily lacking. I think it's just not translating because he doesn't know where to put his effort in real time.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to me. I think paralysis by analysis is like a good
Hmm.
way to look at some of Kalel's worst moments, because I think you're right. He's someone that was raw coming in. We would knew would need a lot of development. You and I talked preseason last year. We didn't even expect him to play really in the regular
Hmm.
season. He ends up starting for most of the second half of the year. And I think part of it too, and this is kind of like the what's his nature as a basketball player. I think part of it is, if Kalel has two decisions he's trying to decide between and he doesn't know the right choice, I think he's more likely to do nothing. And
Hmm.
I think a player like Bam and other maybe more like Heat players, if they have two just decisions to make, they're just going to do the most aggressive thing they can and hope it
Yeah.
sorts itself out, right? Like if there's like a rebound coming off the rim and it's like, do I box that guy out or do I just go for it? Kalel might not move and Bam might like elbow him in the head and like, just smack the
Yeah.
backboard, and so again, it's like, can they get Kalel to a point to where he's just, processing, like you said, making these decisions more quickly. And then hopefully that can translate to just a consistent impact on winning. That's
Hmm.
what he has been saying, which is great to hear. That's what he's striving towards. That's what the coaching staff keeps trying to implore him to do. So consistent impact on winning, and it'll take time. And I think moving him to the bench is a really good move for that exact reason, because he'll be playing more against second
Hmm.
units, and maybe things will be a little slower for him. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
and I
think
do also want to point out that in these preseason games, for anybody who's was really concerned, one, you just shouldn't care that much about preseason games. Like this is fun, but it's a very minuscule translation to what we're actually going to see out there. But the other thing is that Khalil was playing with G Leaguers, two way guys, for because Spo wasn't doing like single substitutions. He was doing en masse 5 in, 5 out substitutions at very particular minute marks. So like this was not a strategic rotation that we did to try to win the game. This was okay. Let's get these lineups out there, see how they play. Let's get the next lineup out there, see how they play, and see those guys within that context. So I think Khalil also playing with our starting guards at certain points and playing next to Bam at certain points rather than Precious Achua and Dane Danger, like that's going to be a different guy, and he's going to have to make much less decisions, and he's going to probably have someone on the floor telling him what to do. Is
Hmm.
another thing. Like he's out there also, especially even like summer league, like he's out there also trying to teach these guys what he's learned in the past year
Yeah.
and also do his job on the floor. So I feel pretty good about where he's at and where he's going. And I just am happy. And I think we're very lucky to have a guy with his kind of demeanor. He seems like a very team first guy and he seems very coachable. And so that's a good spot to be in with your rookie or your second year player.
Yeah, well said. Well, we're coming to the end of our journey here. I'll give you one more shot to give a shout out to anybody you've been enjoying. My shout outs, I have one good one, one bad one. Good one,
Mhm.
Fontecchio. I think he's going to play a lot. He can shoot. He's a smart guy, good connective passer. So excited to see more of him. He's also huge, like you and I were texting about, just like
Yeah,
a large
dude.
dude.
This guy has to be 7 feet tall. That doesn't make any sense. I was like, there's no way.
Very well built young man. And
Mhm.
then my concern, Kashad Johnson.
I didn't know if we were going to get there, but
It's not the biggest
a step
deal in the
back,
world.
maybe
It's
worse than he was
not.
last year.
Just isn't clicking how I wanted it to click. I feel like the life cycle of these Heat undrafted guys, this is around the time the Duncan Robinsons, Gabe Vincents, even like Haywood Highsmith, it's like you start to see the archetype that they'll fit into in the Heat system. And Kashad, defensively, he's definitely got great tools and will be good. Offensively, it looks far away right now. And again,
Mhm.
he's playing with these second units. He's, not playing with a lot of guys that are super talented, but he's also playing against the Bucks second unit, which is like
Yeah,
G League guys. So I will say I'm just gonna raise a little concern. It's not somebody that'll be in the rotation if we're healthy anyway, but it is somebody that I'm not seeing positive signs from.
yeah. I will say he's got a long way to go before he's gonna meaningfully crack the rotation without severe hemorrhage of players for us. And not to say that he can't do it because I felt the same way about Drew Smith, and he managed to just keep getting contracts until he was ready. And I like where Drew Smith is at in his career. So there's still a lot of room for Kashad to work. I think it is going to take a lot of reps to learn how to play basketball at the NBA level. I think that seems to be really the lacking thing. It's all processing, but more so just understanding how the game works and what to be doing at any given time. Like Khalil obviously struggles with making tough decisions, which everybody does, but it's one of those things you have to learn. Khalil or Kashad kind of struggles to make any decision at all when it comes to playing, besides just running straight at the basket and trying to make something happen. So yeah, I was a little concerned, especially in that last one. I was like, this does not look like a guy who's putting the pieces together, especially when you contrast it with, the guys that came in at the same time as him and Khalil and Pele, who obviously were drafted before him, but Pele's. You've seen how he's grown year to year, and so it's clear that Kashad's not on the same track as those two guys, but not to say that he can't get there. My one player that I loved or was really interested in, Myron Gardner. You know, he was a guy that we signed to a two-way this summer. I didn't really know where he came from because I don't think he played for us in the summer league. But in these two games, I was pretty excited by what I saw. It was interesting because I feel like I've seen him in a lot of our social media stuff. Like our social media team has talked to him a lot, and I feel like they only do that with guys who are pretty secure in their job. And when I saw him on the floor, it's like this guy has a little bit of electricity to him. Like he didn't do anything in particular super flashy, but he seems to be a real athlete. Looks like he can put the ball on the floor and could be really interesting for us. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on him. The guy I was concerned about, we should probably did these in reverse order so I don't end on this note, but Precious Achua. Still the same Precious that we drafted?
Y'all ever texted your ex and you're like, oh, wait, you're still the same person all these years later?
So many years later, and he just doesn't know how to dribble. But defensively, he had some really awesome plays. Offensively, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But, he just got to the team like a week ago, still trying to figure some stuff out, and was clearly just trying to make stuff happen in a unit that had no talent on it in general on the offensive side. So I try to give him that credit that he wasn't playing really much with the starters, and the effort's still there, the athleticism, the tenacity, the dribbling, and the shot making, though. Kind of rough.
Unfortunately, the confidence is still available in both of those categories, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
more of an issue. But I'm glad Precious is back. I echo your concerns, but hopefully he will figure out a way to make it work. And I hope he makes the roster. They need, some front court depth, and he can, we've seen what Precious can be helpful in some ways. So, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We are back officially. I think the Heat play the Spurs tomorrow, so we'll get to see Ultra Instinct Wimbenyama to devastate
Oh, my
us.
God.
But hopefully
Hey,
we'll see
Khalil
more.
really gets up for this, so
Eh,
maybe he gets to start.
Maybe so. So we'll have more fun action. Hopefully we'll get some of these guards back. I'm ready to see Kasparis and Davion and different guys. So hopefully we'll see some of them ball out. But yeah, always keep it locked in with us. We'll be posting a lot more frequently now that we are back in the season. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, please leave them in the comments on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. For myself, Micah, my good friend Lino, we will talk to you guys next time.